Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Amma ba'd. In the last halaqah about giving khutbah, I mentioned some things about knowing your audience and choosing your topic. I wanted to reiterate and just expound upon, just to further bolster how important that is. And and always want to give examples from the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or afterwards from the Khulafa al-Rashidin. And here, we know that Umar ibn Khattab, radiyallahu anhu, one time when he was performing Hajj, when he was the Khalifa, he overheard some people say, if so-and-so dies, then I'm going to give pledge to this person. And this had angered Umar, and he decided that he was going to speak about it. And that was when Abdurrahman ibn Auf took him aside and said, you know what, do not address this topic among the Hujjaj. When, the Hajj, the Mawsim, the season, it gathers people from all around, and you don't know how they're going to interpret what you say, but instead wait until you come back to Medina to address, the ulama and the people that know better and can understand your words better. And also, of course, in Medina, that's where Omar lives as well. So if someone has a question about what he said, they can come back to him a day later, a week later, a month later. It's okay. Al-bab maftuh. Whereas if you are going to be giving a special address that might not be understood correctly by a lot of people, then you have to be very, very careful and conscious about that. So one thing is that when it comes to, of course, your audience, and especially when it comes to topics that address relevant issues relevant to today, you have to, of course, ask, how many people in your masjid are even aware of some of these issues. What I find sometimes amazing is that there might be issues of politics going on overseas. Maybe it's in India or Pakistan, or maybe it's in one of the Arab countries, and all of that group are talking about it, but I have absolutely no clue that it's going on. And likewise, there are issues that go on here in America that the immigrant community has no idea that's going on. The latest social media buzz, whatever it might be exploding on social media. All the bloggers are talking about, a lot of the traveling du'at are talking about it. But in your masjid community, where the vast majority of the attendees of Salatul Jummah might be the parents of people who might know about some of those, depending on their ethnic background. I mean, like most Desi kids might not know much about Omar Suleiman, and most Arab kids might not know much about Norman Ali Khan, for example. So, if there's issues that those individuals are commenting about, for example, then they each one, and also their parents who English might not be their first language, don't know about either of those individuals. And so you can imagine that, and the parents are going to be the ones who are present. Usually the youth, the younger generations, we are trying to bring them back to the masjid. And one of the ways that we do, of course, is by addressing some of those relevant topics. But of course, you have to be selective. You have to recognize that the vast majority of your audience might not be aware. So you have to be selective. The issues that where it would truly be blameworthy for an imam not to address it are the things that everyone knows about. For example, I remember the New Zealand attack. When that happened, that of course was on a Jumu'ah, and being here in America, Thursday night, that was when I received the text that this was going on. Then I received a notification on my phone that this was going on in a mosque in New Zealand right now. And so I after, a couple hours, you find out, and by the time, Fajr came, then a lot of the details were hashed out. So, not wanting to be tone deaf, of course, and because it's very, very important, and, obviously everyone's going to be talking about it, I made my khutbah that day immediately about those events. But not so much about those events, because the events we're still learning about it, what totally happened. A lot of times the first story that you hear is changed several times throughout the week, throughout the month. So I actually made my khutbah about the Battle of Uhud and connecting that to those events. And, the tragedy that happened in the Battle of Uhud, and how, ultimately it turned out to be, as, to use the English phrase, a blessing in disguise. لِيَتَّخِذَ مِنْكُمْ شُهَدَاءَ, as Allah Azza wa Jalla says. And, subhanAllah, how much greater things come after different tragedies. Allahumma mustan. Walhamdulillah. So, with different things that happen in the community, maybe people, they might ask, why don't you address this issue? Why don't you address that issue? And, the question back to them might be, well, how many people do you think actually know about that issue and are curious about it? Sometimes, even as Imams, we might know about certain issues. We might know about certain issues that bother the community, but we don't know how prevalent it is. Because maybe a couple people, it's like, I hate to say this, make this comparison, but for example, if you see a cockroach in your home, they say, if you see a cockroach in your home, then you can assume that there are 100 or even 1,000 just like it inside the walls. And that's one thing that when you hear about some event, some slip up, some sin in your community or in the Muslim community, in the media, this or that, can you assume that all the Muslims are privy about that? Maybe, maybe not. It depends from case to case. And sometimes one of the most important questions that you ask yourself is that, is this topic something that I should address as it is, or should I address it subtly and just focus on certain overarching lessons that will guide us in our approach to it? Or should we, hit it head on? And likewise, is this topic or is this event better to be addressed during a khutbah in a subtle or overt manner, or is it better for a dars, or like a special dars? Sometimes, there might be some event that maybe I feel, well, yes, a lot of community members would like to hear about that during a khutbah. However, maybe I think that this is maybe for a more selective audience, or I want to deliver something that is more educational and not a maw'idah. And in that case, I will turn it into a special dars, a special event. For example, maybe like going back to the New Zealand massacre, the masjid attack, while I gave the khutbah about New Zealand the day of, I also announced right after Salat al-Jumu'ah that we will be having a special dars that very night to talk about some more practical and actually relevant talking points related to related to that event in specific, and events like that in general, how to talk to your children about it, how to what's the state of our masjid security, of course without being too detailed about that for security purposes, obviously, but just or general but important things that people would want to know about and and understand for their sake. So, you have to be wise and use hikmah, and also don't be afraid to seek counsel from others. Seek counsel, and then maybe in some cases it is required to speak with the board specifically, or if you have if there are other imams in the community that you would like to speak with about that. And that, I believe, that's something that you should never be afraid of doing. I seek counsel from other imams, area imams, and imams nationwide constantly. Every week I am, I wish I could do it more often every week, but I seek counsel from imams very, very often about a myriad, about tons of different things all the time. So that I have more confidence myself in what I'm presenting and in what I'm doing as an imam. And I know that I'm not reinventing the wheel or when it's already done for me. And I also know that and have an idea of what other people might expect or know about from their imams in the past, because I did not grow up. I did not have the chance to I didn't have the chance to foreshadow an imam before becoming one, nor did I have the chance to be an assistant imam before becoming the only imam of a masjid. And that's something that I also strongly encourage anyone who thinks that being an imam could be in their future. Shadow an imam for a day, for a week. Shadow him through everything that he does, not only questions and answers and his khutbah prep, but also a lot of different things, and learning from him his style, and then shadow other imams as well, so that what are the things that they all have in common versus what are the things that each one has their own style and their own way of approach, and so that you can benefit from the ways of those before you, depending on the community that each one caters to. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.